Hello there, and welcome to Frontiers of Innovation, an initiative brought to you by Canon, where we're looking at conversations really around the world on issues of innovation, creativity, and many things that are affecting the lives around us. I'm Ethna Trainer, and I'm your host for this session. And today I'm absolutely delighted on the day of International Youth Day to have such a dynamic group with me. I'm going to introduce you to them in a minute. We have such energy here today. I'm so excited about this. But of course, to all of you at home, I really want to get you involved. I want to make sure that you're going to ask some questions here. There's many of us that are wondering what's going to happen with the youth of today. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. And in terms of what they're doing, where they're going. And I know there's lots of you out there that will want to engage with our great speakers and talk to them and just see what's going on. And again, as I say, it's International Youth Day around the world. The UN put this in place in 1999, really, I think, to honor just the vibrancy, the talent, the intellect, just the contribution of youth around the world. And indeed, as everybody says, you know, to all of you young people out there, I mean, yes, you are our future. And I suppose this is something that we all need to realize. And sometimes I think, you know, as young people, you look at that and maybe you don't embrace it quick enough, but yeah, it's all out there ahead of you. Let me welcome our great speakers today. Omar Tom joins us. He is the co-founder and partner for Dukhan Media. Omar Tom, known as OT, great to see you. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. So happy to see you. I love the energy.
And I'm depending on you to keep it up. I'm just getting it started. From Dubai Cares, the Communications Associate, Sarah Alboum. Nice to see you, Sarah.
Likewise, Etna. Thank you for having me.
Super. And from Trifid Media, the founder is here, Mahi Shaifi. So Mahi, thank you so much, Mahi, for joining us too.
Pleasure.
There you go. What can I say? We've got three really dynamic, interesting, exciting, successful people here that are just, I know, going to blow me away. I'm kind of feeling like the grandmother of the bunch. It's like, guys, help me here. Help me feel the love now today, because you're going to have to inspire me. Omar, let me check out with you, please, and start with you. This is, without a doubt, you guys are a restless generation. You know, lockdown restrictions, nobody has really experienced this before. But for any of you, particularly around your age, nothing really has put the brakes on before. Tell me, what have you been doing and how have you guys been coping for the last 6 months?
So from my end, it's actually been quite interesting. I flew back from a business trip on the 8th of March, or rather, the 9th of March, right around midnight, and by the 9th, 10 a.m., the borders and flights were stopped between Dubai and Saudi Arabia. So I just made it back home in the nick of time. And since it's just been self-quarantining with the family, work, exercise, I've actually finally made time to catch up on shows that I haven't had time to even see prior to it because of all the travels and work. And I think more the blessing that I found with the quarantine is that I've actually spent a lot more time with my younger siblings, got to spend a lot more time with my family in ways that I haven't been able to do before, as I was a bit notorious for being a workaholic and spending all my days in the office.
And probably realize that, you know what, they're a pretty cool bunch, huh? That you guys get on probably better than you thought.
Surprisingly, they're quite lovely.
Well, that's good to see. Sarah, you're another person who has given your work, and you can blend it in terms of what you do with Dubai Cares. You're always traveling around the world. This must have been a little bit of a shock to the system in a way too, that it just for a few months you're saying, you're doing all this great work, but you're not going to get to go to these, you know, very interesting places and looking at the developing world as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely allowed us to take some time back. But, you know, I was talking about it with my colleagues, and despite the travel restrictions, that doesn't mean our work ends. I mean, you know, we do have a goal for SDG 4, which is quality education. And so, I mean, through hell or high waters, no matter the circumstance, we are still focusing on our goal for quality education, and we still manage to work as hard as we can given the period. We did have trips planned for March in particular, but then, you know, when we had to pull back and just focus on how we can still spread the important message of education while being at home.
Mati, talk to me about what you've been up to. You've been busy. I know you've been really, really busy, and probably even busier for the last few months. Tell us a little bit more.
I mean, I haven't been this busy ever since I started TriFid. The pandemic has been such a great push for TriFid because educational sectors have gone online and everything has been like stopped. So I've had all of these interns and young people coming up and going like, we want to work, we want to do something. So in the past 4 months, the company has grown 8 times because of the pandemic itself. So we've been super, super busy. We've been working from home for 2 months, and then ever since we started, we just went from 30 people to today at 196 individuals at the company.
And you, I believe, are probably the oldest at the company. I'll stay with you for a minute on this. In terms of like, what are you doing? You're doing a lot in terms of the influencer space. You're doing a lot in terms of social media. But again, the energy, I'm so looking forward to coming to visit you when it does get back to, normal and everyone's in there. I want to see the buzz happening at your great setup. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so we started off as an influencer management company, and then I brought in the element of production to support these influencers with production. And then we got better at the production as the days went by, and then we had a production department, and then they complemented each other. Clients started asking for social media. We brought that in, and then TikTok came in, and then YouTube came in, Snapchat, and then suddenly this all grew up. It just went on. And yes, I am the oldest member of the company. Today at 27. I'm not 27 yet. I will be in November. It's just that I got rejected from my ex-boss because I had an idea, which was what I'm doing right now. And he told me no. And that was the best answer I could have ever gotten in my life from anyone. So it just motivated me to leave, start my own, and give opportunities to the youth, because I believe that their creativity and their energy cannot be matched by no other. So that just proved myself and everybody else, the fact that these people can make a change, can make a difference. And today I have gotten over 100 individuals that are below the age of 21 years old at the company, who are making this company successful and growing like no other. So it's not me, it's everybody else within the company that's doing it. It's just me believing in them, that's it.
And that's so important. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, you've got that tremendous foundation and that great brand here, in Dubai and indeed in the region, so well done for that. But we'll talk a little bit more about it. Omar, talk to me about where you started on this too, because, like Mati, you had a normal job, so to speak. You were out there in the corporate world. You put in, your Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, probably 9 to 9 in terms of what you were doing. There was always creativity in it. But you had your university education,
right.
Then you had a normal job, let's say. But again, you made that shift at an early time, and obviously at a great time for you.
That's right. I mean, work overall for me started at a much younger age. I started working at 14, sort of getting some jobs and doing chores here and there, and various gigs that would get a little bit cash, so I could use that, to buy games or whatever I wanted back then. But really, it was my family that really pushed and really believes in that. Starting work very early type mentality that we have at home. And as you said, I was at university and I started working right after that. I remember I didn't even have a break, but I probably given my last exam on a Thursday. By Sunday, I was starting the first job. So I was in that traditional format, if you will, of, okay, I got to get a job and moving to this employment status in the corporate system. And a couple of years later, I've quit and went, I did my postgrads in the US. And by the time I came back, I already started developing my work on the Can Show, which was the initial beginning for the business when I started it off with the podcast. At the time, I was working in the advertising industry as a strategic planner. So in a way, I used to get paid for my opinion, which was wonderful. But I quickly started to realize my passions were elsewhere. The idea of creating content, developing sonic content was also brewing at the time, especially because I already had a part-time job as a university student on radio, where I started from shadowing RJs to being a co-host on radio. And I took that knowledge, marrying it with my experiences within the advertising industry to eventually build Dukhan Media with my partners. And now we've been doing this for the past few years, and it became a family, but also it became everything we live and breathe and stand for and live by. And the sense that back in the day, there were projects that we'd have to do because it's part of my job, but I might not necessarily believe in. Similarly to, I believe in a way, was Maddie's experience. But now we are able to build something that we truly believe in, we stand behind, and do it not only to support the youth, but really to support the community and the cultural landscape at large.
And we'll talk more about that, because that I think is so important, and it's almost a theme that's running through everything that you all do. Sarah, talk to us about Dubai Cares. It's just such a very unique, interesting philanthropic organization, but with a focus not here in Dubai, with a focus outward. And the work that you're doing there is really, you're the chief storyteller, so to speak, in many ways, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure. So Dubai Care started in 2007 due to the vision that our leader had, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid. And, as for a foundation that's really so young, we really put our footprint globally. The work that we do obviously is predominantly around the world in so many different countries. So our just little headquarters with only 50 people is based in Dubai. But we have got a bunch of vibrant staff members. So many of them are also young. We're trying to incorporate that youthness within the organization. And I personally have had the privilege, due to the job that I have, is to travel worldwide to different countries and documenting the stories, because we're all about showcasing impact. And that is how the young people of today are able to see that this is the glimpse of the philanthropic sector and how they can get involved as well. So it touches upon a lot of different elements when it comes to storytelling and publicizing it on social media and different types of media. So we have really grown as a foundation into raising awareness, but more importantly, talking about the cause itself and reaching that idea towards youth.
And it's such a great organization. I've been really honored to do some work with you as well. And I know many of the people down there, and it's just, at the very heart of what you do is so fabulous. But I've always been so impressed. Let me stay with you for a minute on this, Sarah, that there's so many young people there who have just great ideas, who are really moving the organization in the direction it needs, because also it's about, helping, the youth and actually helping education and that in other countries. But talk to me about perhaps your peer group. And yes, there's a community there, but is there an interest in actually, reaching out and helping others? And is there an interest in philanthropy and doing more, not just for your career, but making an impact, so to speak?
Of course. If you asked me this question 10 years ago, I'd probably have a very different answer when it comes to youth involvement. But nowadays, whenever there is this particular cause, I notice from my peer group that everybody wants to get involved, irrespective of what tangible action it needs to bring. People nowadays, they resonate towards important causes that are going through worldwide. And we in the foundation are able to have these types of conversations. And we see that integrate into Dubai Cares programs itself. We started with primary education as a focus, but then we have transitioned towards youth programs. And you can see that live in the countries that we operate in. Ecuador is the most recent example. So it definitely is a vibrant conversation, I would say, today when it comes to the philanthropic sector and how the youth can get involved.
Now, Mati, I'm hearing the word community coming from all of you. And in terms of what you're doing, particularly when we look at what Trifid does too, and you talked about, bringing so many of the younger people in, particularly in the holidays and all of that. I presume you got permission, because it's not everybody that can be out there working as well. But the idea of building that young, dynamic community, and also you're not so much looking at CVs and saying, who are you? Where are you from? What have you done before? You have a little bit more of an open embrace to this community. Tell us about your style, perhaps.
Yeah, so I don't care about CVs because I don't care about their past or I've never ever looked at any CV in my life for anyone that I've hired or brought onto the company, because I believe that once you give an opportunity to someone and give a chance to them and actually train them, they can come out and flourish, and God knows what's going to happen. And I always give it a 90-day gap to see where they can fit or what they like to do or what they want to get their hands into. I mean, these people are 18, 19, 20, 22, and I believe that until the age of 25, your brain allows a certain capacity of information to be absorbed. And if I can be able to transmit that information in a certain way to benefit them, more than to benefit me, on the long run, it benefits the company, which at the end of the day benefits me because it's mine. So it's more of, I look at what makes them happy and not what makes them successful. because if they're happy, eventually they will make themselves successful. That's the approach that I encounter and I have.
Indeed, and it sounds like, you know, a fun place to work. I think you tend to bring that into it, but you do have a few rules you were telling me as well.
Yeah, the only rule I have is to be on time in the morning. That's it.
I love that, because maybe it's not what all of the youth want to do, but putting that little bit of discipline in, it's interesting. Tell me why that one.
The early bird catches the worm. That's it. Simple as that. There's nothing else to it. I just believe that the earlier you wake up and come to work, the more energy you have to be able to do good and be productive and be proactive. And that's the only principle that I have in the company and nothing else. I'm very flexible with how people work because I feel like if you're in a fun environment, you'd be able to give in what you need to give in passionately and not because you're forced to do so. But the only rule that I have, which everybody here follows, is to be early. I actually come to work at like around 8:30, and from 9 o'clock till 9:15, if someone's like has a car issue or doesn't have petrol, is stuck in traffic, they call me, please, don't be angry, please. I'm not gonna be, it's okay, you know. It's they actually try their best to be on time, and that's the only rule that I have in the company.
Okay, well, you know what, 8:30, 9 o'clock, that's not bad. I thought you were going to give me the sort of, you know, 5 o'clock sort of 6 o'clock start. So
for me, when I worked in corporate, I used to wake up at 5:30 and be at work at 7. But I mean, I gotta be a little bit more lenient with these people. I mean, but you know what, they do their job great. But the only rule, be on time and nothing else.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you're probably just a good guy. OT, talk to me a little bit more about community, because for you, not alone is this what you're sort of doing, but it's at the very heart of what you do, and even the meaning. Talk to me a little bit more, and to maybe people out there who might not get it, but what is Dukhan?
All right, so I mean, let's start with Dukhan first and get into community. Dukhan is a word for shop. It's in Arabic, Persian, Urdu, Hindi, and Turkish. And it's just a little grocery store, the corner store that we spend a lot of time hanging out over there growing up. And it's a space where it didn't matter who you are, where you came from, you'll always find a friend or somebody to connect with. The storekeeper knew everybody in the neighborhood. And those stores are so iconic for not just my upbringing, but I believe for a lot of people, because they are the cornerstone of community. Within that neighborhood, they played a certain role beyond just selling you goods and beyond just selling you certain products that they would have had in the store. For example, you would find out news about your neighbors from them. In various countries around the world, they had different roles.
And maybe sometimes a little bit too much to be the like, did you see?
Exactly, right? A little bit too nosy in some cases. And the beautiful thing about it is that that experience replicates itself in various ways. So whether it's a barbershop, it's a corner store, it's a hair salon or a nail salon, it's where people come together and have meaningful conversations that matter to them politically, sociopolitically, environmentally, whatever it is that you want to talk about. You know, it tends to begin in such spaces. And that's the experience I wanted to replicate at the beginning with the Dukhan Show when we started the podcast, that we wanted to create a safe space for people to come together and have discourse. And that same practice translated itself into the business, where not only it's a safe space for discourse, but also, as we're saying, community building. Now, we take that word within our immediate circles and the secondary and tertiary circles. So for example, the well-being of our staff matters to us, not because it's their well-being, but there are other dependents on them, right? Their family members, their siblings, their children, their wives, husbands. And that's part of our community, that's part of our extended family. And that's a practice that we take very seriously. Even when we work with our suppliers or even our clients, we do consider them as part of that community that we spend a lot of time and effort in nurturing and growing together.
No, I mean, I think it's a great foundation to build, you know, an idea, an ideal, a company, all of that stuff. I have an American friend who talks about the bodegas, and I just love the rhythm. Yes. It's almost like Dukhan. There's a lovely rhythm in the word as well, and you can see how that embraces, you know, the community. And indeed, we all grew up in neighborhoods that corner shop, and those people were so important. So well done. That's really cool. Now, listen, I just want to ask you all a little bit. There have been many Arab youth surveys, and, you know, you all live here and you've all been to regions around the world. And there's a recent one that has just come out, the Arab Youth Priority Survey, and that's partly with YouGov. And 73% of Arab youth saying security, safety, stability is very important. 70% really saying that education is so important. And another one that came up very high on this, healthcare. But Sarah, let me particularly, when we look at the education side, now all of you, and I do want to talk to you all about this, have gone through the educational system, and you've gone through third level education. You've all rocked out of university and then went into jobs and did that. But when we think about, the results of that survey and just the results, I mean, everybody does surveys with Arab youth, and there's a wonderful Burston Marcella survey that Sunil John does every year. And indeed, I know the world watches that one. I know investors in America that watch that one as well. So people are watching this area, and they're watching and they're interested in the youth, because I think you're in a time, that has never been like it before. The Arab youth, there's a lot of attention been put on you. Where do you think, Sarah, is probably the most important? What do you hear the concerns from your colleagues and from your friends and your peer group? What do you guys work out? What are you happy about? What's the challenges you tend to face? Because we just talk about what we gather from surveys and stuff. Tell us from yourself.
Right. I think I would remove the word challenges. When we discuss, we talk about opportunities, right? And what are the obstacles or any of the chances out there that we can further pursue? Because at the end of the day, we just want youth to be redirected to reach greater heights in order to thrive in our lives. And I'm sure every other young person worldwide will tell you the exact same thing. So survey or no survey, we definitely all have the same passion. We all have the same, notion that we need to work hand in hand to empower one another, enhance youth skills, pave the way for them to become leaders and positive contributors to our own communities. And I think that's the similar wavelength that we all have in common when we have such discussions.
No, and I find that very, encouraging, very uplifting. Matti, talk to me. What's on your mind, and what do you talk about with your friends in terms of when you're looking to the future and looking at what's going on in the world at the moment?
I think, you brought up the word education and universities and all that. I don't want to go back. I would never go back. I think I want to promote people to stop going to university.
So you're not going to do the masters and the PhD and all of that stuff, no?
God, no way. Like, it's just a waste of money and time unless you're doing something that you actually need the education for. But if you're going out there to get a PhD in business or like in communication or things like that, that's something that you need experience with. And no education can teach you anything that you learn actually in the real world when you step out and you go into a job and work and meet all the sharks and all the wolves and all the God knows what. And I think real life experiences are required if you want to go out there and earn real money. And I think that's what the whole discussion is how to make money in the proper way, in the right way, right manner, and learn how to be able to stand your ground in front of the people that have the money that want to give it to you. And I think that's important to be taught to the youth today.
But on a wider level, I mean, and I do want to come back and talk to you all about education, because I think it is, in different areas too, something we need to look at. But on that wider level, in terms of security, stability, obviously living in the UAE, I think, and we see from many of these youth surveys, this, it guarantees pretty much the security, stability, which we look around the Arab region, and it's not necessarily there in so many other countries. But are there any other areas where you feel that your, contemporaries around the region, have some concerns about, perhaps?
No, not really. No, I don't see it anywhere else, to be honest. I just see it around that area. Being in the UAE, it's one of the most diverse countries. It's somewhere where, I feel like the security and the stability is there for the youth. Most of them are supported by their families and things like that. So I don't see it anywhere else. Any concerns anywhere else?
Yeah, no, and of course it's going to be very different in different countries at different levels of economic development and all of that. And it's not just this region, indeed, it's around the world. Omar, talk to me a little bit too about, obviously youth surveys. What's going on? What do you think are key issues that youth are addressing right now? I mean, it seems, you guys are all doing what you love to do. Is that an opportunity for youth, right across the board?
I think that there are various ways to come at this and take a look at it. Obviously, youth today have been finding new ways to articulate themselves and been more creative ways to express what they go through and share their stories and share their narratives with the world. For the longest time, especially if we take media, the media perspective, there was a dependency on traditional formats of media with gatekeepers that had control over that, what can be said and what can be not be said. And obviously with the democratization of media through social media and the internet and various digital platforms, it started to allow for people to be able to speak and articulate themselves in various ways. And we see this with all different creative formats, be it in music they share, the visuals they create, the graphics, the videos, the productions that they develop, but also now, podcasting. When we started Dukan Show, there was nobody in the landscape in 2015. Whereas now, fast forward 5 years later, you're looking at over 500 different shows coming out of the Middle East and North African region. So when it comes to the media landscape specifically, there are various forms of expression, and that has been a great tool to empower a lot of people in the region to speak for themselves and share their own narrative and own it first. In other formats, I think that there are different things that are obviously important and necessary once we step out of Dubai and the UAE specifically. Security is definitely a big point, but also security, you have physical and financial security as well to look into. And when it comes to education, the practices that for media, to be honest, you don't really need necessarily a higher level education in that sense. You can easily acquire it online today. You can find tools and learn for yourself and study tutorials and improve. But then if you want to be an engineer or you want to go into a medical route, then by all means, get that degree. Right?
Please get that degree if you're going to be my doctor, or yours. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So please go ahead and get those degrees for sure. But if you want to come into this where we occupy and we play, and media is a great way of hiring. I think we all have our own various ways and practices of hiring people. For us, it's always about, okay, what do you do? What are you passionate about? What are the things that you find your heart, your heart speaks to you about it? And let's see how we can bring that to life throughout our practices. And that's how we communicate it. So
I think that's so important. Yes.
And it is industry dependent in that sense. So as for, I think, for quality and safety and education, as I mentioned, they do have, based on different parts of the world, there are different preferences. And these surveys come by our desks all the time. As a strategist myself, I do spend a lot of time developing qualitative analysis, and I do get quite invested in these researches, and I read, I go through them in a lot of detail. And it seems like it's just, you always notice that out of that 73%, for example, the majority would be in certain markets versus others, right? And that once you break it down and go into the detail of it, then we start to understand really who's trying to say what and what are the different points that are more important for some people than others.
Actually, stay with me a minute, OT, because I know I want to talk to you. As you said, you're a strategist in that. And I also talk about, the spending power of the youth in this region too, and that catchment power. Now, you were asked to do a big sort of cultural survey, so to speak, your own cultural survey, say one of the big players here in terms of looking at this region, and again, a company that was going to look here, and you actually delivered surprising results, I believe, to them in terms of they identifying that they have to target this market differently, uniquely, but it was a win-win for everybody. Tell me a bit about that.
Right. So we were working with partners from Europe who are looking. Their client is a financial tech business, so it's direct-to-consumer business banking, but it's all online. So there's no actual physical location that they're looking to come into the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the overall GCC markets with that technology. And coming into the market, they wanted to understand the various behaviors in terms of people's culture in relation to money. How does it make them feel? What's their spend like? Are they more savers, more spenders? Are they? What are their debts like? And what is the impact on that on households, on families, and on individuals of various age groups and various financial brackets? So that's an exercise that we've done where we've gone through quite an in-depth analysis. It wasn't as much of a survey as it was a qualitative insight research development exercise that we've done in the market with a focus on Saudi Arabia. And even then, you start to understand the different nuances within the UAE, like the difference between Sharjah, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi, and how people spend versus LA, right? Or in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh versus Dammam, Dhafra versus Jeddah, or have a different relationship with money. So that's an example of the type of work that we spend a lot of time doing that really gives us a true magnifying lens and insights onto the behavioral, onto people's behaviors within the market and the sociological impacts that they have on it, that overall results in a true cultural understanding.
Now, I mean, I'm just listening to the three of you, and you clearly love what you do. And I mean, I love what you do. It's so exciting. But Sarah, come back to, and I think I'll pick up on what OT said there too about the shift in the media. I mean, how exciting is that? When we were working in the media, and I had my whole career as a television journalist, it was very competitive to get in. And I mean, I was going to be the one that would maybe tell your story or maybe not, whereby now you can tell the story for Dubai Cares, and you don't have to wait for me. It doesn't really matter if I show up or not and tell that story. So how exciting is that? But do you think that all of the youth are in a position now whereby they are well informed enough and they will make that decision of the job they want to do and the power that it will give them, and it will give their company? And when that shifts, and if they perhaps don't like what's going on, they're just going to get up and go. I mean, the job for life, I think, is gone a long time ago. So what's your perception? And I'm coming to you, Mahdi, on that one, because I see you're interested too. But Sarah, talk to me just a little bit about, perhaps, is there impatience among the youth? And some people tend to say there is, and so there should be. I suppose we should have been a lot more impatient back in our day. But talk to me a little bit about that.
So, I mean, I think when it comes to media, as we all know, I'm sure the three of us can agree that social media is an emerging market. When I first joined Dubai Cares in 2014, it was straight from university. And I remember my sole responsibility was to make sure that our Facebook page was filled with insightful, topics and conversation about Dubai Cares. Fast forward now, we can't keep up. There is so many new things day after day in. And so it is really important to entice our audience, especially with our cause, which is, providing children in developing countries with access to education. How do you get people so eager to learn more? How do you get them involved? How do you get more donors to come in? And so it definitely gave us a new conversation, a new perspective with regards to how we want to reach out to our audience by focusing on everything that we're trying to put on our social media platforms, like starting a YouTube page, beginning some sort of series, to getting a perspective from our chief executive officer. How did he become a part of the Dubai Cares landscape and talking about philanthropy in such global settings and not just in the UAE? Because as I've explained before, when people think of the country, they look into the glitz and glass and glamour about what it offers. But when you talk about Dubai Cares, we are that little light that focuses on UAE's humanitarian efforts abroad and what we're trying to do with the vision of our former leaders. And so it's so beautiful when I talk about it, when I share the information with my friends and my colleagues about what we do. And so when it comes to, focusing into the jobs right now, I don't look at what I do now as a job in the traditional sense. Like for me, it is so rewarding. I learn so much every single day. And it's something that I can see resonate with my peers when they start looking into which path they want to follow, which job market, which setting, because it's no longer the traditional way of, I just need a job, I just need to make money. It's what would empower me so I can talk about it in 10 years time or 20 years time.
That's a great way to look at it. It's really how we should all be looking at it. Mati, you're doing a job, that didn't exist many, many years ago, and particularly how you started this company, particularly looking at influencers, a whole new group of people. But again, talk to me a little bit about how social media, where you see it, has really shifted the dynamics of power in many ways, in the world, in terms of who influences who and who gets to talk and who gets a seat at the table, so to speak, that perhaps didn't have one before.
The people with volume get to talk. The more content you put out there, the better you are. And the faster you put it out there, the bigger you are. And that's it, as simple as that. I mean, my business today could be something, tomorrow could be something else, because we are moving with trends. And tomorrow, if the trend is something else, I have to follow that trend. And the younger I am, the easier for me to adapt to these trends. Because the older I get, the more difficult for me to go like, oh God, another trend. Come on, I gotta get used to it. So for me, it's just that every single day that I wake up, I pray to God that there's not a new trend on TikTok. Because if that trend exists on TikTok, I have to come to the office and look at people doing that. And I'm like, okay, how do I get into it? And with the youth, especially with the youth, I think they don't have a clue what they want to do or how they want to do it. They don't know. Somebody needs to go and tell them what to do and how to do it. And I see the youth as clay. I always say this to the people that are at TriFit as well, because you can shape clay the way you want to shape it, and they will be shaped that way, and they will remain that way. As long as you make sure that they're comfortable and they're happy in that environment that they're in. If you make sure they're comfortable and they're happy in an environment that they can have fun and at the same time work, they will passionately and proactively give you back more than what you expect from them. And that's my job today. I am not the founder of the company. I'm more like a consultant that comes in, that starts listening to people's problems and how to solve them and what can I do next to make sure that you're comfortable at work. And I mean, this might sound crazy, but sometimes if I get a Pizza Hut meal with cheese crust and give it to 5-6 people, they're happier than me would be if I go and offer them 10,000 dirhams worth of cash, because they don't care. So
okay, I mean, yeah, ultimately life is simple. So your new role, maybe if you need to, you become a potter. You're the clay shaper. I love that, actually. But I do want to, yeah, one thing I do want to ask you, and I understand this, and I know we're in the middle of this very, very dynamic thing, but you're talking about how trends are changing so fast and things are moving so fast and everybody's got to like run with it. Are we not in danger of missing out on some of the, maybe the in-depth information that we need? Or am I just, old hat on that, because you can just check it out on Google? Why should you learn it if Google has the answer, Mati?
Definitely not. But I mean, you depends on the interest of each individual. I mean, the ones that are interested in knowing those in-depth topics, then they'll go in with them as well. But I think the word fast will still keep going, and it will only get faster and faster, because the accessibility of what you have is in your pocket, literally. So, I mean, it's just, you need to get used to it. And it's only going to get faster and faster and faster. And the amount of information is going to get more and more and more and more as we go along. So I think this is basically it.
No, absolutely. I learn so much when I do these, interactions. And on this one, I'm learning even a lot more. But I've obviously kind of got to get new running shoes and move a little bit faster. But Omar, I do have my podcast almost ready to go. So I am beyond excited. I might be a day late or short, but it's happening. So I'll have to come down and get some advice for you. Again, staying with the speed of what's happening, Omar, in the world too, and the speed of how, people are moving towards that. I don't think, it's almost like everybody is on the highway, whereby when you look back for so many years, it was almost like the country roads that were small and they were windy and there were cul-de-sacs and they were U-turns and they came back and forward. It's now the highway and there's no stopping. How different will that make kind of just our world? Because there's almost, I suppose there still is room for trial and error and there's room to fail, but you just got to fail a lot faster now. Is that it?
Definitely. You've got to fail a lot faster. You got to fail more often too.
And people are willing to. I love that. I think about people right now. It's just, whereas years ago, failure was failure.
No. Right. And the other thing is that I think we learned very quickly that the only way forward is to fail often and to fail as much as possible, because there is no better school than that. To be honest, that's the master's program. That's the one program that you're not paying necessarily cash for today, but really you're paying everything you've got for that master's program. And that's the one that will catapult you to wherever it is that you're headed. And that's something that we've learned with everything we do. And that's why internally we ask our staff to constantly fail. And especially, and it's interesting when we have, some of our team from corporate that might not be used to that, to what you were saying earlier, where it's like, oh my God, you failed, how dare you? And they realize that the narrative is different. It takes them a while to get used to that, where it's like, no, it's okay. we still got your back. We're gonna get through this together. We'll figure it out together. So yeah, definitely. I mean, failure is necessary. Do it often, do it a lot, do it often, do it fast, but more importantly, where things matter is to not repeat it.
Yeah, and learn from it. I guess that's it. That's really, I think, what is the key thing here. And it's a great attitude to have, and it's a great attitude for everybody. Sarah, when you look at, I think, and I look at all of you guys, this is probably the first time there's been a really multi-generational workforce, and it will probably be there for a few more years because the retirement age is getting higher for a lot of people, and the entry age is getting younger in many ways. So how do you actually fit into companies? You're in an organization, it's a bit different, but I'll talk to Mati and Omar too about that kind of corporate stuff. How do you fit into that? And I often hear some of the corporate people too talk very much about reverse mentoring and how helpful that has been to them and how much fun it has been. The ones who are open to it and the ones who embrace it are just totally loving it, and we're all beginning to speed up. But how easy is it to do that, Sarah? Or are there still people sort of scratching their heads and wondering, where's it all going to end, so to speak?
No, of course. And I mean, like I said before, this really doesn't feel like a 9-to-5 job for me. And of course, I don't think we are currently in that still mindset of that 9-to-5 obsolete, very antiquated workforce traditional vibes. We've really moved on from that. And it doesn't matter how old you are or what your work experience is. It's all about how you engage with people, how do you deal with them on a daily basis? I mean, I'm turning 28, but some people tell me that I operate like a 60-year-old, I go to bed early and I'm not on TikTok. So it's like, well, how do you keep up? But irrespective with that, I just think that a lot of people have an open mind, let's just say, when it comes to the entire workforce attitude.
Mati, talk to me about where corporates fail, and because I still think there are a lot of people out there that have that, sort of Monday through Friday, 9-to-5, maybe not mindset. And I think this has been such a shock to them, and in many, many great ways. And we're hearing people who, were slave to the desk in the office and the routine that's kind of going out the window. And it's so interesting to hear that. But where do you think corporates are getting it wrong? What's the danger if they don't break out of their very structured ways in terms of where are they going to be in the future?
Yeah, right. So I just feel that corporates need to start getting away from hierarchies, and they need to start believing in equality amongst everyone. And that's so important, because once that happens, it only motivates the other person next to you to feel that they're only equal as you are, even though you are a senior member in the company or you have a position. So at TriFit today, nobody has a senior position, even though they do more work than the other people, yet they're not known to be any different than the other person. An intern might walk in today who's 15, is treated the same way as I treat the person that does work in accounts, the person that has been here for 2 years, the person that's the most senior member to me, my partners, everyone to me is equal. And that's what everybody is following here at the company. And that's one thing that is going to be in my opinion, I feel like it's going to be difficult for organizations or companies that haven't been there for such a long time to try to adapt to this, because it's difficult to adapt to such changes and to accept it, definitely. But if you practice this culture, I mean, we talk about community. I like to use the word culture, and the youth like to use the word cult. It's not even culture anymore, it's called cult. So once that cult is created and it's practiced and it's followed, the respect will be there. However, I believe with the existing organizations today, if they want to try to adapt to something like this as such, the element of respect doesn't remain, because they've been so used to doing other things. So that's what we do at TriFit, and that's what I'm going to continue doing at TriFit for however long TriFit goes and lasts. And I'd like to really have people, and every day we have hundreds of clients coming to the facility, and they just say, how do you do it? And I say, I'm no different than the other person. And I always believe that the person sitting next to me is smarter than I am. And that's what, makes it move on and makes it go along.
We can all learn from it. But I mean, in many ways, it's kind of a very utopian outlook. And, you know, it's, but, you know, communism wanted equality as well. And that didn't well either. You know, so I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think it's probably a new world and it's beginning to happen. I know Emaar here in Dubai has decided they're going to do that. I worked personally for Bloomberg, and they had no titles, but believe me, we were so conscious of who was who, and that hierarchy was very much alive and well. So if you can do it, I think that's fabulous, and it's just so encouraging and just exciting to hear. And I think it's coming from you as the leader, so that makes a big difference in terms of the fact that you obviously rolled it out, and it will work because you want it to work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the people here look up to me more as a friend, as someone they can go up to and have a chat with when needed, rather than a boss. I hate the word boss. I just don't like it. Well, I'm not your boss. I mean, I'd like to be someone that you want to speak to, you come to, and if I have the time, there we go. Let's have a chat, quick, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because, you know, there's 200 people. I can't accommodate everyone. But yeah, I mean, I do it every day. I wake up every day and I tell myself 18 hours today, let's do it. Until the day that comes that the members of TriFid that have been there since the beginning start to becoming more responsible. So I wouldn't want to bring any experienced individual from outside of TriFid to come and start leading the other people. I'd like the people that exist here to learn enough, gain enough experience, and start teaching what they've learned to the youth, to the younger people. And that just keeps carrying on and going on without a hierarchy. I don't need that hierarchy. I don't need it. I don't want it. I think it doesn't need to be there. And that's what really is helping us scale at a very high pace. So. Yeah.
And indeed, yes, and that's exciting. And I think in terms of that leadership role that you're looking at yourself very much too is, yes, having influence, impact, and being able to, you know, to advise and actually, and to lead, you know, which is probably where a lot of other maybe older players in the market are having a bit of a conflict on. But we can talk about, we'll talk about that maybe on another day. Omar, come back to, I think this same concept in terms of what have corporates got wrong? I mean, I hear, and I moderate conferences around the world, and we hear people saying we need a bit more of a life-work balance. And again, we have to look at diversity within the workforce as well. And, you know, women that will come into the workforce, you know, will get married, will have children, that will still go on because we've got to have another generation to take over. So how do you think that, you know, corporates need to maybe adjust in terms of what they're doing? And what do you see that works well?
To be quite honest, and within that regard, I think what corporates maybe not necessarily got wrong, but are slow to adapt. For example, as my business partner Reem says, like it's a lot more difficult to change the direction of a cargo ship than a speedboat, right? So corporates need a lot more time to change direction, but there are currently what are the necessary steps that need to be taken, I think, across the board for all of us as businesses is, first of all, hiring based on merit, not about race or gender. We've been having these issues on a global media landscape that everybody has obviously been talking about. Diversity is quite necessary, just at a bare minimum of diversity of opinions and having people that could oppose you and have that healthy discourse and having disagreements and coming to new ideas and new perspectives that is brought by that. And then diversity, I think within race, diversity with genders, even in senior roles and in senior spaces to allow for these type of narratives to exist. And corporates, as I said, it's just a lot of them might be a bit slower to adapt than others. The ones who are rejecting the changes or don't believe that the changes are necessarily going to impact them are where the issues are. Very quickly, you're going to find yourself to be the next Blockbuster, the next Kodak, that you're going to get taken out by a business that is adapting and accepting the changes and really taking it forward.
Indeed, and I think that is the fear that's out there, and we're even beginning to see some of that happen throughout the pandemic. It's really brought some of those weaknesses to the fore. In an area program on Frontiers of, and we actually talked to a fabulous company, I must put you in touch, Abodo, and Vanessa, who runs this company, and it's really, they map talent around the world and they can do this remotely. And as she said, she even at one point had 3 people qualified for the job. The absolute, she could just feel the spec that they had. All of that was there, was in place. She didn't know if they were men or women. She didn't know what race they were. She didn't know what age they were, but she just saw that they had actually totally qualified. And very often, when people actually have that face-to-face encounter, they might decide, maybe we're not going to hire you today, or vice versa. So I think it's very exciting, the potential there is there. Sarah, let me come back to you, and I want to come back to the education issue on this too, because the work that you are doing is so important in particularly developing countries and making sure that there is a foundation and a grounding of education, and particularly education for girls, because in some developing countries that's not happening. Now here in the region, I would imagine, you all grew up not really thinking, I would imagine you grew up knowing you had the same chances as any boy in school. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the misconception that people might have in the region is that just because you go to a school that is segregated, that means you're not given the equal opportunities that girls may have with boys. But I'm really proud of the fact that my family has also educated my sister and I in terms of, going and getting our education and not having any obstacle when it comes to the gender issues that revolve, across the region. And what we typically hear from different Arab homes in the space. And, it really shaped us growing up. And thankfully, you can actually see it from the UAE leaders, right? That we've got women in cabinet. We have women representing us in the Federal National Council. We've got female ministers. We are really on the right path when it comes to pursuing education and focusing our efforts on women and young girls as well. And I frankly am very fortunate that I can see that in the Dubai Cares work as well when we travel abroad and we're able to implement girls' education programs, because it really makes you feel grateful with what you have here, and you're just hoping that the young girl in Zimbabwe will have that same opportunity that I had growing up.
Indeed, and I went to an all-girls school too, so it's like we all survive this, and we come up with just as equally a bright and optimistic attitude in terms of what's going on. So it still works around the world. Mati, one thing that we had talked a little bit earlier, talked about the value of, you tell me that you were working from an early age, and also that you had that you had the sales focus about you, and how important is that? And when it comes to education, I actually think, and I had a discussion with somebody, even at 3rd level, and he was looking at the universities and at the MBA programs, he's going, nobody teaches sales. I mean, I would imagine that this might be something that even should show up almost in primary school.
I think if instead of me learning algebra in school, if I learned how to save money, I'd be so much way ahead in my life right now today that would just change me completely, right? I've probably studied algebra for 6 years in school. I've never used it in my life ever. That's about that. But when you come to university, I feel that education has an importance. Definitely, it does. But it depends. What are you getting that education on? What are you studying? Like Omar said, if you're going to get an education for business or communication, in anything in media, you don't really. They don't teach you what is out there in the real world. It doesn't exist at all. I did go to university for 4 years studying advertising in communication. And throughout my studies, I worked as well. So I was studying at night and I was working during the day. And I just feel that if I didn't spend those 4 years studying advertising and communication, I'd be way ahead of my time today, knowing that I had that extra amount of 4 years. I mean, it's 4 years is not a little amount of time, it's a lot. And on top of that, I'd probably have a lot of more money as well in my pocket to be investing into my businesses and not into the into what I did spend it on in the educational sector. And what's so surprising, it's still today, I have people come to me after they graduate, and I go what have you studied? Okay, I've studied communication. I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have a clue. A lot of individuals and a lot of young people, I believe in this region at least, I might be wrong. It's just something that I see, and I try to, you know, I'm a very transparent guy. A lot of young people are forced to study what their parents want them to study. And I'm so against that. Like, it's just that, listen, I love you as my mother, I love you as my father, but you're not going to live my life. I need to live my own life because I need to do what I need to do and study it. So it's just that, and it's changing as we go along. And I'm so glad to see that it is changing. So to talk about education, I respect it. I really do. But for the education that people actually need to carry on further in their lives, whether it's something that you actually need to study. But when it comes to business, when it comes to sales, when it comes to going out there and trying to sell something, no, you need experience. You need hustle. And another thing about sales is that no matter the best idea in the world, it's very subjective. It might be the best idea to you, not to me. However, if you're good at sales, you can sell it to me and convince me that that's the best idea that you have. And that's what I've been doing since day one. I've been selling ever since I was 16 years old, anything I could get my hands on. I remember back when Dubizzle in the UAE, and I don't know if you know Dubizzle, but
Who doesn't? Come on, we know, yeah.
Great. So it used to be very new in the UAE. No, barely people used it, and I used to start selling on it. I used to buy stuff for 100, sell it for 130, literally in a matter of minutes. So I've been doing it since day one, and then I started communicating with people and learning different cultures. And I'm so happy that I was born and raised in the UAE, because I'm in a country that I get to meet, talk to people from so many different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, and it really helps me develop my communication skills, because every single individual is different. So when I approach someone that's Iranian, I know how to talk to them. I know what body language to use. I know how to communicate. If I approach someone that's from Asia, I know how to communicate with them. And that has helped me a lot. And that's only one thing that I'm trying to teach and get back to today.
I think that outward looking again, and it's that all embracing that's so important. We've got to embrace the time at a minute because we're running out, but I love that. And in terms from you, I have to take that as your closing comment. It couldn't have been more positive, I think, and really focused out there. Omar, give me just those few words that you're going to give encouragement to people who are coming into the market and, you know, looking for that great future. What do they need to do more than anything else to make sure they're successful?
R&D.
1 minute.
Just R&D, always research and development, keep testing. The thing is that we were used to a certain set of rules that was given to us that we broke the mold through. And now those rules are changing. All the rules, to be honest, are today. And there is no right or silver bullet that is the end all be all that will give you everything. So you got to keep testing and figuring out what is your niche and how are you going to stand out and how do you want to serve people. And I think that's always been the core for us. It's the question of, that will help identify what is your purpose. And you need to answer, how do I want to serve people? What is it that I love to do? And what is it that makes me happy? And if you find the answer to those three, that will get you the closest to your purpose, and keep testing to get yourself there constantly.
Great words. I mean, and great words of advice and inspiration, because ultimately, and it's not just the youth that need to be doing that, we all need to be looking at that. Sarah, right. I'm going to leave you the closing word. Where to from here?
I mean, I just want to echo what Omar and Mehdi have shared. And of course, you know, if you're young, you've got the symbol of strength and persistence. You've just got those two elements, so use it.
So exciting. I mean, I want to just thank you for the last hour. It's been, for me, it's been educational, it's been inspiring, it's been engaging. I've just loved every minute of it. And I think I've learned a lot from you guys as well. So that's been really, really helpful for me. And I'm sure it's for all of the people who've been out there listening and watching. We saw some of those great comments. Thank you so much. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Mahdi, Oti, thank you. And again, thanks for your energy. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's been absolutely super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And just to all of our people at home, before we go, I just want to thank all our viewers who are signing in on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's always great to have you back here. This initiative brought to you by Canon Frontiers of Innovation, 3 great innovators that I've had here for the last hour to really share their news and views, and indeed, you know, their big focus for the big plans for the future, because there's a lot going on, but I think it's time we all step up the pace, so to speak, because we need to be fast and we need to keep up with it. Lots going on. We'll continue this series of innovation, Frontiers of Innovation, really bringing you up to date with what's going on. And the next time we're going to be back with you, we're going to be taking a look at the future of printing, of all things. So that'll be really, really interesting. So keep an eye on our Facebook, on LinkedIn, on all of our social media channels. And from all of us here from Canon at Frontiers of Innovation, thank you all so much. Bye-bye, and we'll be back shortly.